Free audio post-production by alphonic.com.
The following podcast is a deep, shallow dive production.
And you're going to love it.
Okay, let's go.
So you watched the Hunger Games and you sided with the resistance. You watched Star Wars and you sided with the resistance. You watched The Matrix and you understood and sided with the resistance. When it's fiction, you understand and you side with the resistance. Yet when it's happening to you in real life, right now, in the news, in the world, right now, you refuse to see it when it's the reality that you are living in. You're afraid to resist in real life.
Hey, what's up, everybody? Happy Friday. All right, you know what? I found a little clip that articulated that siding with the resistance thing that I read a few episodes ago. And you know what? It was episode number 313. And you know how I knew that? Because I went onto the Deep Shallow Dive and I searched. I did a search for the word resistance and it came up. How cool is that? It's actually pretty cool. So again, just so everybody knows, I am in the process of building out basically a blog page for every single episode, every guest episode, every health episode. And so if you ever are curious or want to try to find something, you can now go to deepshallowdive.com. In the top navigation bar, you should see a search. And then whatever you type in, it should bring you a list of the episodes that contain that search word. I ended up recording the episode with Brandon Leibowitz from Search Engine Optimization Optimizers. Wait, is that what he calls them? Oh, no, he calls himself SEO Optimizers. Anyway, I'll release that episode probably next week. I might even release it on Saturday. I will tell you this about my man, Brandon. And I love this guy. He's like such a nice guy. He's a little bit dry. I'm not going to lie. I had to sort of pull the conversation out of him, but it is a very interesting and quite frankly informative discussion about the concept of search engine optimization. And for any of you that has a website, or for any of you that, has a business or even just is curious how things work when it comes to Google search and all of that stuff, it's actually a very, very informative episode. Maybe I'll just release it during the regular schedule. This is so funny. I get so wrapped up in my head to make sure I'm giving you guys things that are worth your time to listen to. And I think sometimes I get a little too wrapped up in that because, and I've talked about this before, I think I feel like, and I'm being very genuine when I say this, I feel like if you're giving me 30 minutes of your day, 30 minutes or an hour of your 24-hour day, I want to make it worthwhile. And I want you to really get something from that time. And so sometimes, I don't know, I'm hypercritical about my interviews. Like I've been hypercritical about okay, is this good? Is this worth it? Are people going to be interested in all that? And I'll be very honest, I felt a little bit that way about the interview with Danica from Code Pink. I was like, is this too niche? Are people going to be really interested in it? And so ironically, I had released that interview that got released on Wednesday on YouTube and social media, maybe about a week ago or 10 days ago. I mean, it was really well received on Instagram, incredibly well received on Instagram, and then decently received on YouTube as well. And I was a little bit hesitant releasing it here, but I ended up releasing it on Wednesday. And you know what's funny? Man, I got a flood of emails from a lot of people. I will say it was probably skewed female, but I did get a lot of feedback that was like, wow, that was really interesting. I've seen Code Pink, or I've heard about Code Pink, or even some people that are like, I never knew about Code Pink, but I checked them out now. And yeah, I kind of vibe with their message. So anyway, I guess the learning of that is, God, I guess I just need to stop being so I don't know, maybe so judgmental about what I think is good and what not even good, but I don't know. Maybe I need to stop being inside my head so much about this stuff. But anyway, I hope for those of you that listened, you did enjoy it. If you didn't listen, it's a good interview. And I think it's only like 36 minutes, something along those lines. And then I've got some more good ones, man. This interview with Brandon kind of initially falls into that. Should I release it? Should I not release it? Should I just release it on YouTube? Should I not release it on Spotify, Apple, and all that? And you know what? I think I will release it because it's also a nice break from all this geopolitical stuff. I mean, this geopolitical stuff has been crazy. All right, we interrupt your regularly scheduled podcast recording to report on breaking news. Okay, this literally happened. I had this entire episode done, and then Elon Musk started tweeting, and if you do not know what I'm talking about, you really need to start paying for it. Actually, you know what? If you do not know what I'm talking about, good for you. Oh my God. All right, so I'm going to interject. This is funny. This podcast might sound a little goofy today because I'm not kidding. I had the whole episode done, and then Elon basically went scorched earth on Trump on Twitter, and it got super zesty, super fast. So let me read a few of these. All right, the first one was he tweeted, "Is it time to create a new political party in America that actually represents the 80% in the middle?" And at the time of me reading this had over 3 million votes with 18 hours left. So basically in 6 hours, it had amassed 3 million votes. 81% said yes, 19% said no. Okay, that is the first one. All right, and then Trump tweeted, "The easiest way to save money in our budget, billions and billions of dollars, is to terminate Elon's governmental subsidies and contracts. I was always surprised that Biden didn't do that." Okay, that's pretty hardcore. Now, again, I don't know the timing of these. I don't know if it was a back and forth thing, but fundamentally, Trump tweeted that. Elon, in direct response to that tweet, he said, "In light of the president's statements about cancellation of my government contracts, SpaceX will begin decommissioning its Dragon spacecraft immediately." I don't really know what the Dragon spacecraft is, but obviously it's probably something important to the US government. And so Elon retorted back with that. All right. And then here is the big tweet that basically turned the internet into scorched earth and probably drove up a bunch of ratings and views for X for sure, because I mean, it is insane how much it's got talked about and continues to get talked about. So this is the tweet that kind of set ship sailing. Elon wrote, "Time to drop the really big bomb. At real Donald Trump is in the Epstein files. That is the real reason they have not been made public. Have a nice day, DJT." And then he threaded it, and his next post was, "Mark this post for the future. The truth will come out." All right, I am going to let my man James Lee, remember James Lee? I had him on a podcast a long time ago. I love this guy. All right, let's listen to James's take on this because I think it's a pretty good one.
I hate to be the one to say it, but this is not the bombshell that Elon and everybody else thinks it is. Hey, come on, Trump is 100% in the Epstein files. We all know this already. It's already been widely reported that Trump allegedly was good friends with Epstein, so of course his name is going to be in the files. In fact, Trump's own attorney general already told us that Trump is named in Epstein's flight logs. So the real question isn't whether he's in the files or not. It's, did he commit a crime? I mean, you don't think if Trump was actually implicated in anything illegal, the Democrats wouldn't have just released these files years ago. Now, in terms of actual evidence that's kind of out there, According to investigative journalist George Webb, he claims that Trump used to go to these Epstein parties with his dates, and he would get his photo taken by a photographer, and then he would bounce before halftime, quote unquote.
Trump is in the Epstein files. That's what the big bomb is that Elon's dropping. We've said that he would come to the beginning part of the party, then the things would start unraveling where the suggestions were being made at halftime. Then Trump would leave. We have witnesses to the facts. So technically Elon is correct, but it's misleading. Trump left at the halfway point in all these parties. We have witnesses to the facts.
This is, of course, all alleged, and really the only way to know for sure is to release the files. Come on, Donald, do it.
All right. I love that take, actually. I love everything about it, mainly because it's kind of throwing water on it, because in all honesty, when any of this stuff happens, and I think you guys know what I'm about to say, in my mind, I'm like, okay, is this fake? Is this just a distraction so they can do something else? Who the heck knows? And I'm not the only one that thinks that. I mean, Megyn Kelly came out with a video saying, is this fake? You know, it's all over Twitter, whether this is an actual feud or fake or not. And I think James makes a lot of good points about, you know, really, it's kind of like with Trump and Epstein, was it nefarious or was it not? And maybe even, was it illegal or was it not? The only thing I disagree with him is in the end where he says, come on, Donald, release the files. I mean, come on. Anything that is truly incriminating has already been deleted probably years ago and will never be released truly. And even, no, I just don't think it will. Whether that's against Trump, Bill Clinton, Bill Gates, you know, all the people that have been named over the years, I don't think that those people are ever going to have any consequences. I just don't. Not that level, you know, that elite level. Okay, so then there was that. Let me see if I can find Trump's next tweet. All right, now again, remember, a lot of this has to do with the big, beautiful bill, where Elon is not a fan of this gigantic omnibus bill, which again, I have to agree with him on that. And so let's for a moment believe that this is actually real and it's a real beef. And if it's a real beef, it's going to be about the big, beautiful bill, which obviously Elon is against. Obviously Trump is incredibly for, but there are so many things I'm sure in that bill that we don't even know about. One of them in particular is taking away the rights of the states to argue anything in regards to AI and AI regulation. So that's kind of weird. Like basically think about it. And this is a pretty crazy analogy, but so Trump and the Republicans dismantled Roe versus Wade and said that should not be, you know, the decision for an abortion should not be mandated at the federal level. You should mandate that at the state level. They kicked it down to the states, which, by the way, everybody gets all confused about, like by getting rid of, or I don't even know what the term is, but basically doing away with Roe v. Wade. They basically kicked it down to the state level. So each state is able to set their own legislation when it comes to the topic of abortion. But when it comes to regulating AI, this is pretty crazy. So in the big, beautiful bill, the triple B, Trump wants to take away the state's rights to be able to create any type of regulation for AI, for artificial intelligence. That is pretty shady, actually. That is pretty shady, especially if you think about that in relation to, like I said, man, abortion. Okay, hey, abortion, yes, that's a state decision. AI, nope, that's not a state decision. That's a federal decision. Again, I know they're not related, but to me, there is some. Oh man, here's another Ray D scrambling for the right word. It's a little hypocritical when it comes to that. Okay, we'll just leave it at that. All right, let me read this next tweet. All right, so this is Trump. He says, I don't mind Elon turning against me, but he should have done so months ago. This is one of the greatest bills ever presented to Congress. It's a record cut in expenses, $1.6 trillion, and the biggest tax cut ever. If this bill doesn't pass, there will be a 68% tax increase and things far worse than that. I didn't create the mess. I'm here to fix it. This puts our country on a path to greatness. Make America great again. So Trump is focusing everything on the bill. I am going to try and see if there's a copy of that bill online and see if I can download it and then use ChatGPT to really analyze it, maybe over the weekend. I'm not even kidding. I might do that. But anyway, obviously, so what I'm seeing right now is Trump is not necessarily going personally at Elon. He's not really attacking Elon personally. And that's actually a red flag to me because it's a red flag, meaning if it was real, Trump would be attacking Elon personally because that's what he does. He just goes on attack mode on a personal level. And I don't think he can help himself with that. So that's not happening. So that's a little sus. That means, okay, man, could this thing be kind of contrived? I mean, it's definitely plausible. And then secondly, Elon is attacking Trump a little bit on the personal side. So I don't know, man. I mean, I don't know. I'm a little surprised. I mean, I'm surprised at the entire thing. Are they trying to use it to get this bill through? I mean, I don't know. I don't know. All right, let me see if there's anything else worth seeing on this. You know what? This is a Twitter account that I like. His name is Patriot Josh. This is interesting. Let me read you part of this. Strategic deception, Elon versus Trump, the feud that isn't. To the untrained eye, the current feud between Elon Musk and President Trump might appear to be yet another case of ego, ambition, or ideological friction. But to those trained in military strategy, psychological warfare, and counterintelligence operations, this is textbook execution of Sun Tzu's cardinal principle: appear weak when you're strong. Let's dissect this. Elon Musk, arguably the most powerful civilian technocrat in the Western world, launches a public poll proposing the creation of a new centrist political party. Meanwhile, Trump, the architect of the modern populist revolt and the face of the MAGA movement, criticizes him openly. The media, predictably, bites on the bait like a starving fish, amplifying the schism. But here's the truth. This is an orchestrated PsyOp, a strategic feint designed to lure the deep state into a false sense of confidence. Why? Because because of ammunition, both literal and informational, is scarce in the information war. Patriots want the enemy to expend it all prematurely. Psychological Warfare 101. Just ask yourself, why would two men with near identical views on free speech, AI control, border security, NATO waste, anti-globalism, and economic independence suddenly diverge off over a pork-loaded bill that both publicly oppose? Okay, I don't know what it means by that because I don't think Trump opposes the bill at all. Then it ends with, they're not divided, they're playing divided. Okay, I mean, listen, I'm going to end this part here by saying, again, if the dots are that easy to connect, they're probably not the real dots. And I have to say, I could see that applying here. I think there's too many touch points between Elon and Trump now, whether that's Peter Thiel, whether that's all these guys, all these tech bro billionaires that are all part of the same team. I don't know, man. At first I thought, okay, this is real and this is over the big beautiful bill, and maybe there's things in there that take away subsidies for Elon, maybe Trump's, I don't know. But now, I don't know. Let's leave it at this. Let's leave it at to be determined. And let's not get too excited, and let's kind of be critical of everything, and let's make sure we adhere to one of our pillars, one of our philosophies. If the dots are that easy to connect, they're probably not the real dots. Okay. All right. I'm going to end on that. Let's see. We might jump back into what I was doing previously. Let me see if I need to edit anything. All right. So Trump put out a travel ban. Man, he's like regurgitating his 2020, or was that 2016? No, I think that was 2016 playbook with his travel ban against certain countries. And I don't know, man. I think this stuff is a little odd. Now, I am recording again with Greg Stoker. Remember Greg Stoker? He helped us. U.S. Special Forces, Greg Stoker. He helped us define. No, not Special Forces. That was Alan Shabaro. He was a Ranger. He was the Army Ranger, which that's kind of badass too. But anyway, Greg is coming on next week, and we're going to talk all of this travel ban stuff. We're also going to talk about, there was a big announcement that Trump made where he's allowing the company Palantir to do some really, honestly, some shady data collection when it comes to Americans and linking the data collection with all of the government agencies. It's not going over well, and it's a little bit odd, man. Not going to lie, it's a little bit odd. So Greg's going to break all that down, but then he also posted something on Instagram. So here, let me play this. I think this actually is going to be a good little setup for when he comes on. You know what? When Greg records, a lot of time he's just like holding the phone in front of his face and he's outside. So there was so much wind in that, it didn't sound good. But he did post something in regards to the travel ban. So let me read this. This is actually very interesting. And again, I mean, I think it's, he's another guy that, man, I give him a lot of credit for talking as much shit as he does against the U.S. government, and especially against the CIA. And obviously for somebody that was in that world, you do have to attach a significant level of credibility to the things he's saying. So let me read what he wrote here. He said, "This new travel ban, in conjunction with the recent propaganda coming out of AFRICOM," and he's talking about the African countries, and you'll get it in a second, "is essentially telegraphing a new U.S. intelligence and security position in the Sahara, or in the Sahel, Sahel. I don't know what that is. Okay, Sahel is like a region of Africa." So then he wrote, upstart governments in Burkina Faso. Remember Burkina Faso? We talked about that with their new prime minister, or their new leader who had all the assassination attempts. That was a few episodes ago. Episode number 312. Thank you again, Deep Shallow Dive new search feature. And anyway, so he wrote, upstart governments in Burkina Faso and Niger, Niger. Man, that country that country has an unfortunate spelling. Must be crushed. Pan-Africanism annihilated. Pan-Africanism annihilated. Brace for more CIA bullshit. So that's what he posted. And, again, this whole Pan-Africanism, this obviously reminds me, and hopefully it reminds you guys. I'll be curious. What am I about to say? What should it remind you of when we've talked about the crushing of Pan-Africanism? I'll give you a couple hints. It involves the dinar. It involves some guy that kind of dressed really goofy. It involves Hillary Clinton. It involves we came, we saw, he died. And yes, I am talking about Muammar Gaddafi in Libya. And again, that was the last time these Pan-African countries tried to really assert themselves, and obviously they got crushed in the process. And then Gaddafi was assassinated. So that's a prediction from Greg. We'll jump into that when I record with him next week. And then we're also going to talk about, this whole surveillance system stuff that Trump is doing with Palantir. I honestly, man, I am just watching right now. I'm trying to not be negative about things and not be, I guess, what's the word I'm looking for? I don't even know what the word I'm looking for. But in regards to some of these moves that Trump's doing, it's almost like the concept of, I'll give you a perfect example. So for 4 years, it maybe even a little bit longer, I mean, the Republicans have been pounding the drum that the Democrats and especially the Biden administration was stomping on freedom of speech, whether that was when you're trying to criticize the vaccine. I mean, that was a big one. Criticizing COVID and criticizing the vaccine, you got deplatformed, you got shut off of social media accounts, you basically, you did your freedom of speech to, even ask questions in regards to COVID, in regards to the vaccine. I mean, even in regards to the 2020 election, they were incredibly hindered, absolutely hindered. And so the Republicans, banged that drum so hard. And here we are now. And I mean, honestly, this is just calling a spade a spade. I apologize in advance to my Jewish brethren, but they're doing the exact same thing with weaponizing anti-Semitism and weaponizing your ability to have freedom of speech in that regard. Now, again, I want to be super clear. Anybody that calls for any type of physical violence against any group, including Jewish people, including Muslims, including everybody, I mean, there's no place for that. Now, what's crazy is there's people that would make an argument that would say, hey, I don't agree with it, but you should still be allowed to say it. Now, let's table that for a second. My point is, I'm not supportive of any of that stuff. I'm not supportive of any type of violent rhetoric when it comes to any group of people. Because again, I've said this before and I'm going to say it again. I don't think it's the group of people that are bad, whether that's Muslims, whether that's Jewish people, whether that's Jehovah's Witnesses, whether that's whomever. I mean, again, people believe what they believe, and we should all be able to respect that. And ironically, I think the differences are not as drastic as other groups make them out to be, but it's the small group of people within each entity that, quite frankly, causes the division for their own benefit, causes the division for their own, strive for more power and more greed and more money and all that. So, I did want to clearly say I'm not a fan of any type of rhetoric toward any group that is highly negative, and especially if it's calling for any type of violence or anything like that. But again, what is happening right now, and the Trump administration is really doing exactly, they are weaponizing the concept of anti-Semitism the way the Biden administration weaponized the concept of talking about the vaccine and talking about COVID and talking about, the 2020 election. That's just the facts. I mean, that is the facts. Both groups are and have tried to impede on the First Amendment and your freedom of speech. They just use different methods to do it. So anyway, all right, that's that. Let me play some other stuff for you. Okay, you know what? This is a section that I had recorded previously, so I cut out some of the parts, but I did want you to listen to this. So again, we're going back talking about the big beautiful bill, which, by the way, in another tweet, Elon referred to as the big ugly bill. So listen to this, because this brings Thomas Massey into the conversation. Obviously, if you've listened to this podcast, I do like Thomas Massey. I think he's probably one of, if not the only only uncompromised person in our Congress. So give this a listen because I think I make a good prediction. And that was in response to a tweet by Thomas Massey. Remember, Thomas Massey is the guy I like. He says the House has a 72-hour rule which requires the bill to be posted 72 hours before passage. But the Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson, circumvented this rule with a manager's amendment that rewrote and added substantial portions of the bill as it went through the Rules Committee the night the bill was passed. Okay, so basically, man, this is such bullshit. It really is such bullshit. I mean, it's pretty obvious that, quite frankly, the big, beautiful bill, which, by the way, has gotten through the House of Representatives and it's going into the Senate, it's pretty obvious that they just kind of are shoving this thing through. You know, I did do an episode, God, I don't even know how long ago, and I won't search the site now because I don't think I've cataloged it yet. But I did do an episode, if you remember, on continuing resolution and the concept of continuing resolution. Remember, we referred to that as CR, and that was kind of Matt Gaetz was the one that really sort of spearheaded that. And then the omnibus spending packages. And these omnibus spending packages, if you remember, these were like these 3,000-page spending bills where they basically would pick one item as the one that they would plaster in the news, like healthcare for veterans. And then the bill had 3,000 pages in it, and in page number 2,647, they were allocating like $26 million for drag shows in Uganda or something like that. I'm totally making that up, but that was not that far off from the way these things were done. And so if you remember the episodes, we really criticized the hell out of these big omnibus spending bills, and then the concept of continuing resolution, CR, and now Trump is doing exactly the same thing. He's doing exactly the same thing. So the quote from Elon says, "Where is the man who wrote these words in 2013? Was he replaced by a body double?" Oh man, that is zesty and savage. And the reason is, if you haven't seen this, so Trump has eluded several times now with posts he's made on Truth Social that Biden died in 2020, and that Biden's been replaced with a body double, or there were certain times when they would put body doubles in. That is savage, man. So Elon, knowing that Trump has said this, literally tweets out, "Where is the man who wrote these words? Was he replaced by a body double?" Damn, zesty. All right, I won't read you anymore, but I will tell you an alliance that I am seeing as I scroll Elon's Twitter is Elon Musk and Thomas Massey. So let's see if Elon Musk and Thomas Massey, let's see if that combination, I guess, gains some momentum. That'll be interesting. I am seeing that play out. Okay, next. All right, I've got to play you this clip. Listen, if you guys are not really paying attention, I guess the way I pay attention, this Christian thing is at the heart of everything that's going on. And quite frankly, it is really becoming what's the word I'm looking for? A delineation. Oh, that's a big word. That's not the word I'm looking for, though. It is becoming let's see. Oh my God. Okay. I'm not going to stop it. I'm going to keep thinking until I think of the word. A division. That's the word. Oh my God, dude. What the hell? Bro. Okay, it's becoming a division inside the Christian community. And by the way, the Christian community in the United States, I mean, we are a Christian nation. It is huge. There's varying statistics out there, but the one that I saw recently was that of the 330 million Americans, 180 million identify as Christians. I mean, that's more than 50% of the country identify as Christians. I actually thought it would be even higher than that, but I mean, that's an insane number. And so the division that's happening, it's a little bit generational. I'll be honest with you. It's a little bit the baby boomers on one side whom are getting, I guess, labeled as the Christian Zionists. And those are the ones that really believe in the Old Testament. Man, I'm tying together a lot of things that we've talked about and a lot of things that guests have talked about, including Pastor Steven Anderson. Oh, by the way, not to jump around, but man, I did watch his documentary, Marching to Zion. It's really good, man. And it's, again, it just makes you think and it's informative. So I will put a link in that in the show notes of today's episode, but it's also all over the show notes of the episode with him. So if you want to find it, you can go into the episode. I think it's number 321 with Pastor Anderson. Look in the show notes. It's actually hot linked several times where when you click on it, it should take you to the YouTube page that has his documentary, Marching to Zion. It's interesting. I mean, I think it's worth a watch. Anyway, my point is what was my point? What point are you trying to make, Ray D? Okay, my point is there's a real division between Christianity happening, and I'm seeing that as well, and I'm seeing it play out here, especially on TikTok. So let me play you a clip, and this kind of sums up what the younger generation, I would say Gen Z, millennials, and then Gen X, we're kind of split. It seems like some people fall in this camp, some people fall in the camp with the baby boomers, but give this a listen.
Instead of a Christian nation, we are now a Zionist nation, successfully convincing Christians to worship Jews.
I just want to say this to our Christian friends, you know, just to call it as it is and say it straight out, you know, you guys are worshiping one Jew.
Really quick, that means basically the one Jew is Jesus Christ.
That's a mistake. You should be worshiping every single one of us because we all die for your sins every single day. And that's exactly what's going on here. Yeah. We're all God's firstborn, and we're dying for your sins right now because the Jewish people in the land of Israel are the bulwark against the orcs. Okay? The orcs are coming not to a theater near you, but to your home.
Oy vey. Meanwhile, Jews are being taught to kill Christians, and Christians are being taught that 2/3 of Jews will die in the rapture. It's really hard for my small brain to understand what this really strange relationship is, but it sounds toxic AF, and I sincerely want no part of it.
All right, again, I'm playing you this stuff because it's a factor. It's a factor. And actually, Glenn Greenwald, I've talked about Glenn several times, and as of late, I talked about him a few times. He was on Tucker Carlson earlier last week, or maybe this week. Yeah, I think it was last week. I think I talked about this. Anyway, I listened to that entire interview. Man, it was excellent. I am going to try. Okay, here's my commitment. I don't know if I'm going to follow through, but I'm going to try. I'm going to try to download the 2-hour and 15-minute Glenn Greenwald Tucker Carlson interview and basically narrate over it and cut it down. Obviously, I'm not going to do a 3-hour episode. I'll try to do it in 45 minutes to an hour. I will try to do that over the weekend and see if I can release that on either Monday or Tuesday. But it's very interesting because, again, Glenn, as a Jewish, he's also gay, not that that matters, but again, as a gay Jewish guy, he called that out as well. And he basically scoped it up a level and he said, that is the division that's happening in MAGA right now. And it's happening in the Republican Party. You've got half of the Republican Party that are fully on board supporting Israel. And you've got half of the Republican Party that are like, I mean, vehemently not supporting that. And so in my mind, and based on what I just shared, Elon's tweeting out, I'm telling you, I could see Elon Musk championing Thomas Massey and them legitimately trying to create a third party. I'm not even kidding, man. I'm kind of connecting those dots a little bit, and maybe I'm taking a little bit too much liberty in connecting those dots, but I am seeing that because this random girl that, and by the way, not that this matters, but again, I wish this was a video podcast so I could play it, but that clip I just played you, that was a young black female. And now here's a clip from a young white female, and this guy, I mean, if there was a textbook looking dude who would be MAGA, it's this guy. So listen to this. I mean, this picture like the exact person you would label MAGA.
For those of us who have been watching what's happening in Palestine, the rest of y'all who have been burying your head in the sand, y'all go ahead and keep scrolling. Y'all are cowards. I don't respect you none. But for those of us who have been watching, you saw the footage of a little girl trapped in the flames.
Okay, really quick. I mean, you can actually tell what this guy looks like just by his accent and the way he talks probably. But what he's talking about is brutal. It was footage of this little girl that got trapped in a fire that was set by the Israeli IDF. I mean, it's painful to look at this stuff, and I know a lot of you don't, but just because you're not looking at it doesn't mean it's not happening. So, all right, let me play a little more of what this guy said. And again, the only reason I'm playing these past two is to show you the diversity of people, I guess, when it comes to race, gender, and everything you would think about. I mean, I think the unifying theme, this guy and the gal from before, they definitely are Christian. And so, like I said, I'm seeing a tremendous division when it comes to Christians here in America.
As we bring this back over here to American politics, because people seem desperate to disconnect themselves, their politicians, their government from this massacre, from this genocide. And I'm here to tell you, I don't give a fuck if you put a D beside your name, an R beside your name, an I, a L, a Green Party. I don't care, bro. I don't give a shit what you call yourself. If you take AIPAC money, you're not my candidate. You take any money from any Israel lobby, you're not my candidate because you don't represent America. You do not represent what is in America's best interest. You are out here trying to capitalize on the position by taking money from someone who has made it clear that they do not value human rights, they do not value international law, they don't value property rights, they do not value the things that make America America. They don't value freedom, they don't value liberty. Israel is not our ally. If you take money from them, you will not be my candidate. I want the DNC to take this to heart because it's not just me, it's for millions of actual leftists. Liberals, y'all are going to have them.
Oh, wait a minute. This is super interesting. I hadn't listened to the rest of this clip. So first of all, it sounds like this dude listened to the Greg Stoker episode because he said leftists and basically he's saying you're going to have a problem with us leftists. So it sounds like this guy might be a Democrat, which is crazy because he looks like a MAGA, like UFC guy. And then secondly, that's interesting that he said liberals, you can have the liberals. They don't stand for anything anyway. So that's just another, gold star for this dude. He actually knows the difference between leftists and liberals and those being two totally different forms of Democrats. And again, just for those in the back, remember, for the most part, liberals and kind of these conservative Republicans that are part of the Uniparty, they're kind of the same. They're one and the same. All right, you know what? Let's listen to the rest of this. I did not think this guy was, it sounds like he is a leftist Democrat along the lines of Greg Stoker. Okay, we're going to pick up with him talking about liberals.
They don't stand for anything. They don't believe anything. They are worthless. They are as worthless as Republicans. They don't believe in anything. They exist to shake a pom-pom and not think critically about anything that's happening around them. All right. But for leftists, for people who are just generally aware, you don't even have to identify yourself as a leftist. But if you have a shred of humanity, you know that what has been happening in Palestine is inhuman, is the work of a monstrous population.
Dude, I'm telling you, it is getting to a tipping point. It really is. And the diversity of people, I mean, think about what I just played for you guys. I played a young black girl and a kind of middle-aged white dude that looks like he should be in the UFC, but turns out he is a leftist. That's pretty wild. That's pretty wild. Anyway, all right, let me play something else for you. This is actually interesting. Sorry, we're going a little longer today, but that's okay. It's Friday. You can listen to this all weekend. So there is a former Israeli prime minister. Now remember, this is a Israeli prime minister. I think he was the prime minister. Let me check. Yeah, I think in 2006. Okay, Ehud Olmert is a former Israeli politician and lawyer who served as the 12th prime minister of Israel from 2006 to 2009. Before that, he held various positions, including mayor of Jerusalem from 1993 to 2003. Man, he had a 10-year run there. And deputy prime minister under Ariel Sharon. Okay, blah, blah, blah. In recent years, Olmert has been an outspoken critic of Israeli's government's policies, particularly regarding military actions in Gaza. Okay, so this is a former Israeli prime minister who's been very active, and it looks like he's getting interviewed in a variety of places. Listen to him on Piers Morgan. And he's basically saying that Netanyahu has no desire for a two-state solution. He's saying he wants to completely exterminate the Palestinians, either through genocide or relocation, but he wants them out of Gaza.
They want to see the Palestinians out of Gaza in order to resettle there. They don't want to see them deported because they want to prepare the ground for a Trump Tower hotel, as maybe some interpreted statements of President Trump to mean. They want it because they want to resettle there, and this is part of their grand design. They want to do the same in the West Bank. Already now they are inspiring the Hilltop youth, which I call the atrocious youth, for almost daily attacks against Palestinians in the West Bank, Palestinian Arabs in the West Bank.
He's a little hard to understand, but what he was saying there was he was basically talking about all those like young settlers, those young violent settlers in the West Bank. I mean, I think Elijah Kallenberg talked about those guys, and so have a few other people. Okay, let me just play a little bit more of this and then I'll cut it. I didn't realize he's definitely hard to understand.
And they are burning their groves, olive groves. They are burning their homes. They are taking people. They are killing people. This is totally obnoxious and something that can't be tolerated. And unfortunately, it's tolerated because the fact is that it continues, and in most cases, the ones that are arrested are the victim Palestinians, is not the Israeli attackers. And this is part of what I am campaigning against. Now, question that you have outlined is whether Bibi is captive by these guys. He is willingly captive. It's not something that he's fighting against, that he's trying to stop. He is willingly captive by these messianic, extreme fundamentalist right-wingers, supporters of Jewish terror, because it's true that this is probably the only escape he has from what awaits to him, but also because the fact is that for the last 15 years, Netanyahu was the guy.
All right, you know what? I let it play, and I let it play because that was interesting what he said, but especially for this part, listen to the last 15 seconds and listen to what he says about the fact that Netanyahu basically allowed Hamas to thrive. We've talked about this several times before, and this is part of why I truly think Hamas is fake. But listen to the former Israeli prime minister basically saying
that ignored the Palestinian Authority, which was a potential partner for peace negotiations, and was supporting Hamas, the financing of Hamas through Qatar, but with the agreement, support, and cooperation of the Prime Minister of Israel.
All right, so that speaks to that. that thing, I think I've talked about it, where basically Netanyahu was propping up Hamas all these years through Qatar. Now, again, I think it goes even deeper. I mean, I seriously do think Hamas is fake. I think it's like, and when I say fake, I mean, I'm not saying they're not real people. They're obviously real people, but I think it is a group of like mercenaries that are hired to like play a role. And then it wouldn't surprise me if when you take off their Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle masks, I mean, they're IDF soldiers that are playing that role. It also kind of makes sense. And I can't remember if I've talked about this before, but that's why like it's surprising to me how savage they make Hamas out to be. And then when certain, and quite frankly, most of the Israeli hostages that have been released, man, they look great. And they're high-fiving the members of Hamas. They're hugging. They're basically, I mean, again, I think I've played this several times. It looks like they're coming out of like a weekend camp or something. There's not misery with these people. So anyway, that is interesting. Coming from a former Israeli prime minister. Now, I guess today's episode is sort of geared around potentially connecting the dots. I am seeing this Ehud Olmert making the rounds on a bunch of American and British oriented news programs, like Piers Morgan's show Uncensored. So I don't know. I mean, could this be a chess move to get this Ehud Olmert back into the public spotlight? Because if it gets to a point where, let's say they just have to move away from Netanyahu and sacrifice him as a sacrificial lamb, could this guy be prime minister again? I don't know. Maybe. Connecting the dots. I'm trying to play Nostradamus. All right. Let me see. Anything else? All right. You know what? That's it for today. I think this ended up being like a double episode because I had to come in at the beginning and redo a little bit. And by the way, I'm coming in at the end now, just so you guys understand how I did this. That little section you just listened to, I had kind of recorded all of that before I recorded the first part about the Trump-Elon spat, the girl fight. And so now I am back and I am recording the end little things. Anyway, all right, that's it. I've got some incredible interviews coming up. I really do. I did some really great ones. And one of the ones I'm most excited about is I'm bringing on a gal, Dr. Mimi Syed. She's taken 2 trips to Gaza and literally took a bullet out of a 4-year-old girl's brain and saved her life, among saving many other kids' lives. It is really good. It's really good. And it's real, man. She's a doctor that left her life here. Well, she didn't leave, but she's gone over to Gaza twice. Anyway, it's an excellent episode. I've got a few others, and I think you guys are going to enjoy them. All right, that's it. Call a spade a spade. Call your parents. Have a wonderful weekend, and we'll catch up with you next week.
That was a great way to end it.
This episode was brought to you by the new book, Deep Shallow Dive Into You, available now on Amazon and Barnes & Noble in hardcover and paperback. Don't forget to sign up for our new mailing list on our website at deepshallowdive.com.